Michelle thinks American men suck.
Let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. To the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better.
Greg Gutfeld didn't just criticize Michelle Obama. He stripped away the shiny veneer of her carefully crafted image and gleefully tore it apart. With a mix of biting sarcasm and surgical accuracy, Gutfeld laid bare the stark contrast between her polished public persona and the political maneuvering she has been quietly engaging in. This wasn't simple commentary. It was a calculated dismantling of her seemingly untouchable reputation. By the end, even her most devoted supporters were left questioning whether the so-called Queen of Grace had finally let go of the truth.
We have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's the footsteps of Barack running to vote for Trump. So, Kat, they know that they're having a hard time with men.
Right.
Doesn't seem like this is the right strategy.
No.
She basically says that they're hurt.
Greg Gutfeld did not just walk into the studio that night. He entered with a confident swagger that announced he had something powerful to reveal. Something that would ruin an entire weekend for someone's public relations team. The topic of the evening was none other than Michelle Obama, the former First Lady who transformed into a media powerhouse, a podcast host, and a master of strategic vagueness, all while securing major brand deals like her Nike sponsorship. Gutfeld arrived ready for battle, full of energy and sharp wit. Gripping his microphone as if it were a weapon, "Let us talk about Michelle," he declared, spinning his pen like a dagger ready to strike.
Even if they run Michelle. According to a new poll, Michelle Obama isn't as strong a Democratic candidate against former President Donald Trump as many Dems would have you believe. In a hypothetical matchup, my favorite kind, Trump wins with 47% of the vote compared to Michelle Obama's 44%. I guess some of the kids whose school lunches she ruined are finally old enough to vote.
If you are enjoying this breakdown, please make sure to subscribe. The table was set. Greg Gutfeld kept slicing away. Her memoir is called Becoming, as in becoming a billionaire, for talking about how difficult it is to live in a mansion while people still expect you to smile at them. Then came the real twist. Have you noticed the pattern? He asked. Every interview is a masterclass in strategic victimhood. Michelle is always overcoming. She is always rising, which is impressive, considering she has been at the top for about 15 years. The crowd laughed even harder this time, because beneath the satire there was a truth so sharp you could almost feel it.
Rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men.
Now, do not get me wrong, Greg Gutfeld said, feigning innocence like a cat with feathers in its mouth. She is smart, she is charismatic, and she is accomplished. But let us not pretend she is some underdog clawing her way out of the rubble. She is not Rocky Balboa. She is a corporate sponsor, a wise mentor figure with a personal stylist. Imagine a montage of her speaking tours, branded lunchboxes, and podcast segments where she earnestly discusses her struggle to find balance while standing in a designer kitchen the size of a Whole Foods market. Gutfeld paused dramatically. We are being sold a brand, a lifestyle, Michelle Obama, and guess what? It is not about empowering you, it is about marketing to you. It is inspirational capitalism wrapped in polished social media captions. Then he brought out the hammer. She claims she does not want to run for president, he said, raising an eyebrow. And perhaps she truly does not. But that has not stopped her from delivering speeches that sound suspiciously like campaign warm-ups, just in case America decides to get nostalgic for soaring rhetoric that ultimately says nothing at all.
Maybe so, but her analysis seems a symptom of a greater problem that contributed to her party's loss. It goes back to seeing the group and not the person. I call it IPB, identity politics blindness. They lost not because Hillary was a woman. They lost because all they saw was a woman. Meanwhile, Trump took nothing for granted. Fact is, many voters would have happily voted for a woman, just not that one. Because unlike Trump, she didn't speak to their concerns. She only spoke of her entitlement. She just assumed that she had the vote. And just assuming a woman must vote for a woman seems pretty insulting from a man. Humans are more complex, surprising, and interesting than liberals give them.
That line was lethal. Greg Gutfeld mimicked her tone, spreading his arms wide. His voice dripping with exaggerated sweetness. We need to rise above. We need to come together. We need to hope. We need to buy my hardcover edition for $29.99, now available at Target. The crowd roared with laughter. Then he focused on her favorite card to play, the martyr card. Michelle loves reminding us how difficult it was to live in the White House. He said how she felt like she had to be perfect, could not make mistakes, could not be too black, could not be too loud, you know? Just like every other first lady who had to host dinners and decorate Christmas trees. He paused and added dryly, except none of the others landed a post-White House podcast produced by Barack Obama and featuring Michelle Obama. That is like writing your own 5-star review on Yelp. Now the gloves were fully off. Gutfeld pulled no punches. She talks about imposter syndrome while being one of the most celebrated, praised, and protected public figures of our time. Madam, if you are an imposter, what chance do the rest of us have? You are everywhere. You are on my Wheaties box, in my Spotify algorithm, and somehow even in my dreams.
Michelle Obama has openly admitted that she and Barack sleep in separate bedrooms. Here's how it works. She sleeps downstairs, and he likes men.
Michelle Obama is the algorithm, he said, leaning back with a deadpan expression. We used to say that Big Brother is watching. Now, Big Michelle is podcasting. And yet, just when you thought he was finished, Greg Gutfeld geared up for the grand finale. Michelle's real power is not her charm. It is her untouchability. She is virtually bulletproof. If you criticize her, you are suddenly labeled a sexist, a racist, or a monster. However, if she sells you recycled platitudes alongside a $90 candle and a motivational playlist, that is called leadership. The audience was half shocked and half delighted. They were not accustomed to seeing someone dissect Michelle Obama with this much energy, precision, and, dare we say, joy. But it is curated, it is manufactured, it is politics repackaged as lifestyle branding. He took a sip and added casually at this point. The only thing more polished than her public relations team is her arms, just as the laughter began to subside. Gutfeld delivered the final line that sent social media into a collective frenzy. She did not become a person for the people. She became a franchise.
In the latest installment of What Happened in an Election That Occurred a Year and a Half Ago, Michelle Obama was asked how Trump won, and she laid the blame on Hillary. Just kidding, she blamed sexism from women against women.
In light of this last election, I'm concerned about us as women and how we think. If we're not comfortable with the notion that a woman could be our president compared to what? You know, we have to have that conversation with ourselves.
The product is self-importance with a side of kale. The room erupted with laughter. But it did not end there. Greg Gutfeld then turned serious for just a moment, not too serious, but enough to remind everyone that there was more than mere sarcasm behind the smirk. The real danger, he said, is not Michelle herself. It is that we keep falling for the same trick, glossy speeches, emotional buzzwords, and vague promises of empowerment, all used to distract us from the reality that underneath all the inspiration, the machine continues to operate exactly the same. That line struck differently because Greg Gutfeld was not merely mocking Michelle Obama. He was deconstructing the entire political celebrity industrial complex that she so perfectly represents. He was not ridiculing her achievements. He was questioning why they are wrapped in endless layers of media polish and soft focus lighting. Why do we confuse being highly visible with being authentic? Why do we applaud someone for being relatable when their idea of a difficult day involves choosing between delivering a TED Talk or appearing on the cover of Vogue, and then, like a sniper, armed with a punchline instead of a rifle, he delivered the final blow?
Michelle's been busy working on a new podcast, and so far, it's been a flop. The first 2 episodes have been up all day and only gotten a few thousand views on YouTube. Half of them are probably primetime producers. But still, Michelle's spilling the family secrets, like how Barry gets on her nerves. Listen.
Barack, he had to adjust to what on time was for me.
Because he was on that island time.
Well, but, I've got this husband who's like, when it's time to leave, it's 3 o'clock, he's getting up and going to the bathroom. And I was like, dude, like 3 o'clock departure means you've done all that, you know? It's like, don't start looking for your glasses, you know, at the 3 o'clock.
She is not leading a movement. She is leading a marketing campaign, and we are the ones eagerly buying it. Along with her athleisure collection, Mick drop, but this was not merely destruction. It was a disruption. Greg Gutfeld did not simply dismantle Michelle Obama's image. He cracked open the glossy shell that surrounds every political figure who transforms into a lifestyle influencer, because in the end, it was not about left or right. It was about what is real and what is fake, and Greg Gutfeld, whether you love him or hate him, has an instinct for spotting the fake, like a bloodhound fueled by espresso. When he aimed at Michelle Obama, he was not targeting her as a person. He was targeting the fog machine, the spotlight, and the echo chamber. He was saying what almost no one else on primetime television would dare to say aloud, that maybe, just maybe, the most relatable woman in America is simply another carefully curated illusion, perfectly designed to keep you inspired, distracted, and comfortably asleep, whether you agreed with him or not. One thing was clear, Greg Gutfeld did not just criticize Michelle Obama, he uninstalled the myth. And, just as the echoes of laughter began to fade, Gutfeld leaned in like a villain revealing the final page of a shocking plot twist.
To talk to you about Michelle Obama's ongoing midlife meltdown, like her, like as you put it, her Stegosaurus hairdos. The utterance the other day, she says she's transitioning. I mean, I think we both know what she's trying to do by using that word.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of all of this? Like, what's going on in that psyche?
I think that transitioning line was meant to get attention because her podcast is failing. No one wants to watch it, and she's not used to that. You know, she's used to being the center of attention. Everyone's interested in me. I don't have to try hard. And so now...
Let us talk about the children, he said with a grin, because every successful franchise needs a sequel. And Michelle has it all lined up like the fourth phase of a Marvel film series. The foundation work, the youth outreach, the college initiative. But here is the crucial point. When was the last time any of those programs produced measurable results? We do not receive real outcomes. We receive merchandise. The camera cut to a smirking panelist who nodded knowingly while the audience braced for impact. See, this is the part nobody wants to say out loud. He continued, most of Michelle's legacy is based on vibes. It is emotional resonance, curated playlists, stage lighting, and speeches about perseverance backed by a gospel choir. And yes, it feels good. It always does. But you know what else feels good? A warm bath. That does not mean it is fixing the broken pipes. He was not wrong. The carefully orchestrated emotional messaging had become Michelle's primary currency. But Greg Gutfeld was not buying it. Not tonight. Her TED Talks are motivational word puzzles. He said, "You are powerful. You are enough. You are seen. Wonderful." Now tell that to the small business owner being crushed by endless regulations.
Michelle Obama surprised fans on our new podcast by saying her pet peeve about her husband is that he's chronically late. For example, we're still waiting on him to admit he's from Kenya. And as for Barack's pet peeve about Michelle, he's mad that she keeps leaving the toilet seat up. When she cleans it. When she cleans it.
I regret that.
Whoopi Gold.
Tell that to the working parent who does not have time to reflect on their own power. Because they are too busy driving for Uber after finishing a night shift. Now it was getting real. This is not just about Michelle, Gutfeld clarified. This is about the culture she helped shape. A world where sincerity is replaced with slogans. Where making a difference simply means changing your profile picture. He was in full stride now. Not angry, but energized, like someone finally saying what everyone in the room had been thinking for years but never dared to articulate. You cannot claim to be the voice of the voiceless when you are speaking from a $12,000 designer couch under a halo light, with your private chef preparing dinner in the next room. Boom, silence, and then he did the unthinkable. He compared Michelle's cultural influence to an iPhone commercial. It looks sleek, sounds progressive, and everyone wants one, but the moment it glitches or fails to deliver, you blame the user, not the system. Michelle Obama is Apple politics, shiny, expensive, and somehow always immune to criticism. The metaphor was both absurd and perfect. She sells empowerment the way Starbucks sells identity, he added, personalized, pleasant, and of course, wildly overpriced.
Than the wonderful Megyn Kelly in the United States. Now, why is Michelle Obama whinging? She seems to always be whinging. Why are things so hard for her right now?
I know. I mean, because when you're thinking of victims of this awful world, you think of Michelle Obama and how terrible we've all been to her. This woman is a one-woman destitution derby. Every time we check in on her at her podcast, she is feeling sorry for herself. She is criticizing Barack Obama or this country. She never has a positive word to say about anything. And the latest example was when she went on this other guy's podcast, Jay Shetty. She goes and sits down with him, and he asks her, what are you afraid of? And she starts off by saying, well, it's not, my fears aren't for me. You know, I think about the streets. My fears aren't for me.
Well, in this current climate for me, it's, you know.
Someone in the crowd lost control, breaking into audible, snorting laughter. Greg Gutfeld gave them a nod, like a conductor acknowledging his orchestra. Then came the closing argument, the moment everyone could sense was coming, but that still landed like a thunderclap. She does not need to run for office, he said calmly, because she already governs something far more powerful than policy, perception. She is the empress of optics, and when you control how people feel more than what they think, you do not need a ballot. You hold something stronger, unquestioned influence. Now, it was no longer just a roast. It had become a revelation. Gutfeld leaned back, hands folded. Michelle's true superpower is not her intelligence, he continued. What she really is your brand manager. And guess what? You are not the client. You are the product. Silence fell over the room, followed by uproarious laughter and thunderous applause, because in one sweeping move, Greg Gutfeld had done what so few dared to attempt. He stripped away the glow, the glamour, and the carefully curated mystique of America's polished icon, revealing the calculated machinery underneath, not out of malice, not out of partisanship, but because someone had to lift the curtain. And Greg Gutfeld, he did not just lift it, he brought a flamethrower.